This is Anywhere the Needle Drops. I am your host, Justin Flagel, and boy, oh boy, folks, do we have a cool one for you here today. You know what we do here, or hey, maybe you don't. Maybe you are new to the show. Maybe our guest today brought you to the show, and you're here wondering, what is this Anywhere the Needle Drops thing all about? Well, I will tell you briefly. We are here to cover all the cool happening in the local, the regional, and even the national music scene. We're based right here in Michiana. I'm here in Niles, Michigan. We're right across the border from South Bend, Indiana, and we cover things all the way up toward Benton Harbor, St. Joe, Michigan, all the way out to Goshen, Indiana, and all the stuff in between. And let me tell you, if you don't know, if you're from here and you don't know somehow, or if you're not from here, well, let me tell you, there is some amazing music happening right here, homegrown in Michiana. It's an awesome place. Now, we're often sitting here talking to our local artists, our venue owners, all the makers and shakers in the area, making things happen in the music and culture scene. And sometimes we have a national act come on through, and we'd like to chat with them as well. And that brings us to today. That's right. Our guest today is Brian Vander Ark. Brian Vander Ark, lead singer of the Verve Pipe, excellent solo artist himself. And it was so cool to sit down and chat with Brian Vander Ark. 15, 16-year-old Justin just wouldn't have believed it. But here we are, Brian Vander Ark in the Red Chuck studio. We're chatting about Brian's career. We're chatting about the Verve Pipe. We're chatting about the modern music world. And you know what? Brian was so much fun. He was just the coolest guy, and we had a great chat. We got into all sorts of craziness. Even Billy the Kid, one of my personal favorite topics. So it's a really fun chat. I hope you enjoy it. Before we get to Mr. Vander Ark, though, you should check out the song he sent us. It is titled Dust. Check out Dust now. Brian Vander Ark will be up after that. And if you are in the region, he's coming to town on June 15th. He and the Verve Pipe will be part of the Acorn Music Festival, the second Acorn Music Festival happening over at the Acorn Theater in Three Oaks. So get yourself tickets to the whole weekend, particularly Saturday night when Brian and the Verve Pipe play. So yeah, I'll be there. I'll see you there. All right, here we go. Here's to life.
rather die than live inside of this memory, memory, memory. Settle on me, settle on me, settle on me. Settle on me, settle on me, settle on me.
So are you out and about on tour right now? What's the travels all about for you right now?
Yeah, I do speaking gigs on occasion. So I just did a speaking gig in Florida near Tampa last night. And then I'm meeting the band today in Atlanta to start the 5-week tour of the South for the most part.
Nice. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about the speaking gig a little bit, because that might not be something everyone knows about.
Yeah. So, I go into a lot of businesses, mostly the financial sector. And it started with started with UBS, which is a pretty big world bank. They brought me in to tell the story of the rise and the fall of the Verve Pipe and how to navigate adversity, also how to leave your ego at the door kind of thing. We had an album come out that was our big comeback album that was released on 9/11. So, how do you come back from that? That's the whole story. So I've been doing that for about 5 to 10 years now, somewhere in there. I was gonna say it's about a 45 minute to an hour presentation. And, a lot of times these companies will have athletes come in. And so I saw an opportunity there as a musician to come in because I could tell the story of the band all the way up to the Freshmen being a big hit. And then I can play the Freshmen. And then I can play another song. We had a song in the movie Rockstar with Jennifer Aniston and Mark Wahlberg called Colorful, and I can play that, So I go through chronologically the band, and it also gives me an opportunity to sing, which is something that they don't normally have. So I just found that niche, so it's kind of cool. Anyway, and it's corporate money, which is much better than rock star money these days, at least.
That's so cool, though, because I talk to a lot of musicians and of all levels. I mean, we're talking, to folks who are, right here locally down the street from me, still working in, maybe a factory, that kind of a thing. And then, all the way up, to your level. And it's interesting to see the various ways that people find, to make more and more of what they're doing related to music, whether it's giving lessons or, just booking something in that field. But I think you're the first person I've talked to that's angled it that way. And that's quite fascinating, that whole world of having athletes and having, artists talk to, corporate types to tell them about life a little bit, I guess.
Well, they love it because, honestly, they don't normally get something like this, I've learned. And also, that song in particular was so popular that most people with disposable income, right, they know the song, and so they look forward to that moment, So it's kind of cool. I enjoy it. Like I said, corporate money, since I've been doing this, has really helped, us be able to tour because, we lose money on touring like most bands at this level. And so this just helps subsidize it.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I also, there's something about that, that concept of, you described it as sort of the rise and the fall of the Verve Pipe. And that's just, especially in what music has become in the modern age. Did it feel like a rise and fall from your perspective in those times? You had this huge hit, but, you didn't necessarily, you weren't stopping what you were doing. It just wasn't being received at the same level, right? So in your mind, is that a rise and a fall? Or, that just seems like one of those stories we tell when we have this sort of celebrity rock star mindset in the world of art,
Right. I think that your perspective is an interesting one, because that's probably the conventional wisdom with our band. But it really was a huge shakeup for us, enough that, I quit after the 9/11 album, and, sold everything out of money, bought an old crappy rusty RV and went on the road, and then, drove across the country with the intent of, playing every coffee house and sports bar I could play to save money, because the label dropped us, to make a solo record and start over. So I really did feel like the end. It felt like the fall, and like we had hit bottom. And through that solo record and being successful enough with that, for instance, going out and selling 10,000 copies of a solo record, that when the record label's not taking 90% of the profit, you just made $100,000 essentially, minus the cost of the album. With a solo acoustic album, cost me about $5,000.
Sure.
So,
And your time.
Yeah. So that, I would say that then the fall, but then the subsequent rise to the point where we are now, where we're touring, playing 100, 150 shows a year. And, and I'm doing the speaking gig. On top of it, we had the kids records that we put out. I mean, it's a pretty good place to be in right now. It's a better place to be than it was, when the Freshman was on the top, believe it or not.
Sure. Yeah. And I imagine, the music industry has changed so much since that time. I mean, it's night and day. So, there are not a lot of artists that have existed through both of those phases. So what was that like for you guys to still be here at this point in this world where, a lot of musicians are just, they're making stuff and they're throwing it online and, getting such a small capture of what the audience used to be. But in some ways, that's all they need to make it work. Yeah,
well, it is different. It's vastly different than it was. I think giving control to a record label was a mistake. I think the only positive of that was the promotion for the song. Photograph was an okay hit, and then Freshman, and then Colorful was okay as well. But most of our success has come from just doing it on our own, and taking control of the business. When you relinquish the business to somebody else, when you have to rely on their business acumen. And I'm not saying RCA doesn't have good businessmen there, but frankly, being able to more micromanage our every move has been very beneficial. We've had the same manager for over 30 years, fantastic manager. And he's helped us navigate those times, So, as far as what you just said about putting music out there and continue to put in music out there, we could put out a song a day and get, 50 likes on it. But what's the point? We're not out there trying to get the likes. We're trying to, create something that we like. And once we get it to a point where we like it, we'll put it out there and release it, and it'll be passed around and people will come to find us. And that to me has been, more successful than anything else, because we've cultivated the connection with the fans more now. For instance, we'll always do the meet and greet. We'll always stay after the show and go out to the merch area and say hi to people. I did house concerts. I did over 8 house concerts in 17 years to get back familiar with the fans. Yeah. And these are things that I wouldn't have done had we had a second really successful album with RCA. There would still be that wall between the fan and the artist. Sure. But now, because of the house concert series I did, I know a lot of my fans, and I know where they live. you know, I've turned their kids on to music because of the kids' albums. So, and that's something that RCA would have never let us do. There's no way they would have let us make a kids album, especially after we wrote a hit song about suicide and abortion.
Sure, yeah.
They want to pigeonhole you into whatever was successful,
Yeah.
They really want you to continue the success. And so they want more songs about suicide and abortion. You know what I mean? And it's like
that was a whole era of that, really. So yeah.
It was, yeah, I know. Ben Folds had the same thing with Brick, and he had a similar thing, more successful than I did with the solo thing. But yeah, trying to shake. Listen, I'm not that depressing of a guy. I love life.
Yeah.
I just happened to write that song, that unintentionally was pro-life, even though I'm a pro-choice person. You know what I mean? So
sure. Yeah.
I mean, wherever the muse takes you, I guess, is the important thing.
Well, and I got to mention, because you mentioned Photograph, I was just talking to my friend Gary that I was hopping on the line with you, and he loves that song. He wanted to make sure I mentioned that because I know that wasn't as big of a hit, but he's a huge fan of that song. So shout out to Gary.
It's funny that a lot of people say that, and a lot of people don't realize it's the same band. It's the same thing with Colorful and the end of Rockstar. I mean, Rockstar was released in 9/11 as well, so nobody really saw that movie in the theater, but it was played on VH1 so much for some time when VH1 was playing movies, and then HBO and everything, that people now are familiar with it, and they don't know that we're the band behind it. Mark Wahlberg lip syncs to my voice. People have no idea, because when you have a giant hit song, it, to use a very timely reference, it eclipses everything else you've done. There's it's always going to be that one thing. Oh, they're the band that does the Freshmen. Oh, people say that's a great song.
Sure.
And I go, yeah, we've got other songs too, but whatever.
It's funny because amongst the other things that I do under this whole umbrella of Red Chuck Productions, I host events. And so I was hosting a music bingo night at a local brewery a few weeks ago. And one of the rounds I created was it was a one-hit wonder round. And if you want to see people get upset, you put a list of songs or bands that and label them as a one-hit wonder. And people were yelling at me at the bar, like, they had this song and this song and this song to also, like, what are you doing calling them a one-hit wonder, Yeah,
but still, you were probably, most likely you were correct. Because think of, a perfect example is Radiohead, right? How many hits did Radiohead have? How many singles?
Yeah.
They had one, and you could say, well, they're a one-hit wonder. If all you do is listen to radio, and back in the day, if you watched MTV or VH1, that you would know them as a one-hit wonder, unless you got into the catalog and went, holy shit, this is a fucking great band.
Yeah,
all of these songs are great. They're artists. But, especially I think in the United States, that's kind of, people want an easy place to put you. It's easy to say Semisonic, another band from my era, Closing Time. Oh my God, there are so many other great songs. Those guys are immensely talented. In fact, Dan Wilson wrote I'm Not Ready to Make Nice, which is the Dixie Chicks or the Chicks song. Yeah. He wrote half of the songs on the Adele record. I mean, these are really great songwriters from that era. And it's unfortunate, but I wear it. I wear that badge of one-hit wonder. I wear it proudly in kind of an ironic way. For instance, I'll go to random karaoke bars where there's a good chance no one's going to recognize me, and I'll sing the Freshmen, and it's like, let's give it up for Brian, and you get a little smattering of applause, and people leave halfway through. And all that stuff is on my TikTok, on the Verve Pipe TikTok, by the way. I've done it 3 or 4 times. It's so much fun. It's just really funny to me. It's really funny to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and all of this, I think, really in the end comes down to what is your definition of success? I mean, when you're working with a record label, I think that's what it comes down to. It's that control, because their priorities are not the same as your priorities. And if you can make it successful, one of my all-time favorite musicians is Roger Clyne of Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers. And they're one of those bands, when they were the Refreshments in the 90s, they had, a one hit with Banditos. And then, they had a similar story where things kind of fell apart for various reasons. But then they were able to build a career, we're talking almost 30 years later now, of touring on their own. They have a loyal, lovely, close fan base. And, for them, that is success. It doesn't matter that they're not on, I guess I don't know that MTV does anything anymore, but, it's all a matter of, what your definition of success is. If you're looking to be a rock star, I guess that's a kind of success. But I think for most artists, they want to make art and be able to live off of it,
Yeah. But the thing is that we can still be rock stars. I can still play the part. If I feel like, putting on makeup, and going through the airport and being that guy, I'm 6'6", first of all. Everybody, they don't recognize me, but everybody sees me. There's no way to hide. And I embrace that. I wear my hair a little higher, I might even go on roller skates to make my foot 7 foot tall. You know what I mean? Just to be that freak. So it's still the fun, the idea that you can do whatever you want to do because you had that success in the entertainment business. And I can carry that all the way to my grave, whether I'm successful, continuing to be not successful, because success is a whole different thing, like you said. I can still be, what's the word? Oh, there's the perfect word for it, and I don't have it. Regardless, I'll come back to that if I have to.
Sure. Yeah. So, as an aside, but you mentioned the eclipse. Did you get a chance to see the eclipse, or were you busy with travels?
I was on a plane. I was on a plane.
Oh,
I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the guy at the window, I was on the aisle, and the guy at the window wouldn't open up his shade. So I had no idea. You know what? From what I hear from my friends back home, the band was back home during the eclipse, and they said it was so underwhelming for them. It was just like, in Michigan, like you're in southern Michigan, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
So what? You had like an 80%, 75% or something?
No, we were up 96, I think.
Oh yeah. Because I heard Ohio was 100%.
Yeah, if you head over to Toledo, that was 100%, and that's only a couple hours away, so it got close, but it wasn't the same experience as you got if it was complete.
Yeah, my guy said that was just underwhelming after all of that hype for it.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm trying to make myself feel better. For missing it. That's exactly what that is.
I feel the same because I had plans to stay at a location in the 100%, in the totality area. And for a variety of reasons, that those plans had to be canceled. And so I ended up being home unexpectedly. And, so I was also like, well, it's not that big of a deal. But then, of course, I've heard recordings of people who were in the area totality just like awing and nearly crying and all of that. And there's a little bit of FOMO there,
I also love how, the conspiracy theorists and also the fundamentalist Christians thought it was going to be the rapture. And I was like, okay. And any excuse for the rapture to come while you're alive,
exactly,
to witness it. Break.
Yeah. How many times have those events happened? And it's like, no, we're still here. So
we're still here. They're still here.
Yep.
Sometimes I wish the rapture would come so we can actually get good things done when they're gone.
Sure. Yeah. You ever watch that show or read the book, The Leftovers? It was
Leftovers. I saw The Leftovers, the movie, the Paul Giamatti movie.
No, I don't know. No, that's The Holdovers, which was also
Holdovers.
Great. Yeah,
You're
no.
right.
So The Leftovers, it was first a book, and I'm drawing a blank on the author's name, but then it was a 2-season show on HBO, and it is essentially about a Rapture-like event and all the people left behind. It's an amazing show. Very depressing. Not a hopeful outlook in that show, but incredible show. I highly recommend
I
it.
feel like I saw maybe the first episode. Was a woman shopping with her baby or something, and then she looked and the baby was gone out of the car or something.
I believe
Okay, I did see the first episode. Yeah. I think I didn't continue after that, but
I highly recommend it.
There's so many shows out there and so many books to read that it's like sometimes I'll start something and just forget. Yeah. And then if it doesn't come back up in my feed somewhere, then I'll just be like, oh, right.
Well, I call it friend homework because, people are always saying, oh, you got to watch this, you got to watch that. And I'm like, sure, I'll add that to the list of the 100 other pieces of content that I haven't gotten to yet. So.
Yeah. You know what's funny about that? What did you just call it? The friend what?
Friend homework.
Yeah, the friend homework. That's a great term because what I get all the time is I get people that text me a song. And honestly, as a musician, and I noticed this on this movie set of Rockstar too, all the musicians, we had Zach Wilde, we had Jeff Pilson of Dokken, we had so many great, Jason Bonham. All of the musicians wanted to talk about movies and acting, and all of the actors wanted to talk about music. And I swear it's just because when you play music, and especially if you're working on music and stuff, I don't want to be inundated with a bunch of friend homework of shit I got to listen to and then comment on. You know what I mean? I get it all the time, especially if I meet a new lady or whatever, and we're dating a little bit, and she sends me 6 of her favorite songs, and I'm like, oh my God, now I got a bunch of fucking homework to do. And then, you know what? Before I get to the 3rd song, I'll end up breaking up with them. That was a joke, by the way.
It's so true, though. I mean, there's so much stuff. I mean, between people sending you YouTube videos or TikToks now, and it's just like overwhelming. I'm actually I just moved in, because of all the finances being tied up in my new house. I shut off all my streaming services, and so if I do have a moment to sit down and watch TV, I'm popping in a DVD now. For the kids out there, a DVD is a physical disc, a round thing you stick in a machine that plays a movie or a TV show for you.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, having a break from the streaming service is kind of nice because people keep telling me, oh, you got to watch this show, you got to watch that show. And I'm like, I don't have any streaming services right now. I'll maybe when I get back to it, but it is somewhat freeing to be disconnected from the deluge of content,
I can tell you though, my daughters, I've got 2 daughters, one's 18 and one's 13. And then I have a son who's 8, who's not interested in music or movies at all. It's all sports. But my middle daughter's 13 has turned me on to more great music than anybody in the last 20 years. I mean, she and I have a very similar taste. She introduced me to this band Mother, which I love, Blood Witch. I know Blood Witch is from a TV show. It's a fake band, but great songs, and it's, and this is for my 13-year-old, and I'm very grateful. And if she sends me something, I'll immediately listen because it's paid off,
Sure. I think that is kind of the flip side of what we're talking about, though, because of the mass access to content. I think the teenagers and even younger now, they are so much more open to a variety than growing up in the 90s. I was 100%. Pretty much stuck to alternative radio, that kind of a thing. But I know teenagers who they're listening to old Sinatra and, blues from the 20s that you can't even get a full recording of, and, all that kind of stuff, folk music. And it's just amazing. And they're also listening to the latest Taylor Swift album. It's just the openness to the variety is pretty awesome.
It's so great because my daughter asked me if I ever listened to Sade, and I said, I don't know Sade. And it was Sade.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, she put it on. I'm like, buddy, this is Sade. She was like huge in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And I was thrilled that she discovered it because it's great, So I think that falls into what you're saying. I think in the 90s, especially the mid 90s, it was kind of there was a cool factor that people were worried about, that kids aren't nearly as worried about now as they were back then. And I'm grateful for, because I mean, the wide variety of music, very uncool stuff.
Yeah.
I just followed Stephen Bishop on TikTok. He wrote On and On, those old 70s songs that are really kind of cheap, but I love that shit.
Oh yeah. 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 I mean, one of my jams lately is Everlasting Love. You know that song?
Oh my God, of course. Amazing.
I mean, it's such a great song. And I work at a university. And yeah, right. I'll have that song blasting, and my dean will walk by and be like, "Aren't you usually listening to like loud punk rock?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but this song's amazing." So now I'm listening to this.
For me, it's going back to 70s R&B. I'm a huge Spinners fan. So many great Spinners songs, and that always gets me pumped up. Always gets me. Earth, Wind, and Fire too. Always gets me pumped up. So. Anyway.
Is that what you were listening to, as a kid and a teenager growing up? I mean, what was your go-to back then?
Yeah, I mean, we had, when I was a kid, it was FM radio was mostly top 40 hit songs, but top 40 hit songs then in the mid 70s, until I got into disco, that was the Spinners, that was the Commodores, and I loved all of it. I mean, there were certain things that I didn't care for, but for the most part, that was it. And when I finally had enough money to buy my own records, which is what you had to do then, I used to mow lawns for like $2 a lawn. And then I remember going, I digress. So I used to mow lawns, $2 a lawn. I remember albums when I was a kid were like $4.99. $4.99, so $5. So I'd mow 2.5 lawns or whatever, 3 lawns, and I'd have enough for an album. And I went to go buy Frampton Comes Alive, and I had my $5 and some change for tax or whatever. And I didn't know it was a double album, and it was like $6.99. So I had to go mow another lawn just to pick up that record. But the point is like, you saved your money just so you could go out and buy these records that were, and the Elton John records, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was a constant replay when I was a kid. So I was a huge Elton John fan. Anything that was pop, great harmonies and melodies. Queen, loved them. Sure. Steely Dan, loved them. I mean, these were all the guys. It was usually the fully produced stuff. The more production, when I was a kid, the more production, the better. I wanted to put the headphones on and hear shit going on over here and hear shit going on here. And sometimes if you listen to the old XTC records, shit starts here and then zips over here.
Sure.
And you're just like, oh my God, I'm in heaven. It's like watching a movie. It's great.
Yeah, that is an element that I don't know is as appreciated by everybody, but I'm with you on that. I love to put on a good, full album with some headphones, hear the details of the music. And, I had a band in here the other day, and, they've got their music on streaming and stuff, but they brought me a physical copy of the music as well. And they're like, make sure you listen to this because it is different on here because of the way they've sequenced the music and the flow from track to track and all that. And he's like, you miss all that on streaming. You've got to hear it this way. See, there's another example of a band like our band who's very deliberate about the recordings, about the album. Like, we care how you're going to open up side 2 of the vinyl. Yeah. I mean, these are things that, how do you want to end? How do you want to leave it? Well, do you want to leave it in a place where they're going to want to listen to it from the beginning again? Absolutely. Or do you want to leave it so they're left contemplating whatever the whole album was? Absolutely. There are so many options, but at least we care that we want to put people on that roller coaster. We're very deliberate on the sequence always, just like the band you were talking about. It's important. The sequence is so important, and you don't get that. And that started with iTunes, when people could put things in their own sequence. Yeah. Anyway. I craft, we release a weekly mixtape on our website. Sometimes I'm just getting it out there. It's about what I'm just listening to recently. But I do, if I have time, I'll sit there and manipulate. Well, this track has to come before that track. Because even going back to the old mixtape days, like, it matters. Yeah. There's a flow. You're telling the story there, Yeah,
especially when you're giving a mixtape to a girl or something.
Oh, yeah.
That was the most important thing.
That's right. Yep.
Sure.
So you're listening, as a kid, was that influenced at all by parents, family, friends? Like what drove you to the music that you went to, you know?
No, my parents were very Christian reformed. We weren't even allowed to listen to secular music. I think for the first 4 or 5 years of my life, it was all Christian stuff, and they sang in church kind of thing. So they weren't. I think what was more influential on me was from them. I got from them were the albums they had of like the Lawrence Welk singers and that kind of thing, when they would do these vapid versions of popular songs. Like, for instance, I think Ray Conniff did You Are the Sunshine of My Life. So it's 4-part harmonies of, and then when you actually hear Stevie Wonder do it, you go, holy shit, there's a whole world out there that I'm missing. So I went from Stevie Wonder, from Ray Conniff's version of You Are the Sunshine of My Life to Stevie Wonder. And then your whole world's opened up, and so influenced by my parents, I would say probably they were musicians or singers at least. But as far as like when my world really opened up was when my brother snuck in a Kiss record. And I think it might have been, what was not then the second album, maybe Rock and Roll Over, when he showed up with that album. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? What is this devil music? And heard the guitar, the heavy guitars. And Kiss songs are so simple, but great because of that. That then I wanted to pick up an electric guitar and learn how to do bar chords and that kind of thing. And that's what really turned me on to playing music as well.
Yeah. So given that family dynamic, how are the parents looking at you when you're like, I want to get a guitar and play music? Were they okay with that? Were they pushing back on you a little bit?
Well, the first thing they wanted to do was, my mother thought we were like as talented as the Van Trop family, from Sound of Music. So she, we had 5 kids, so she would force us all to go down to the local nursing home and sing, and we would sing. And then when they got me the guitar, they're like, oh, that'll really fill out our sound. And I'm like, I'm not fucking playing a guitar in an elbow. So, I want to be on stage somewhere. And so, when I picked up the guitar, their intention was that maybe it would be okay if Brian learned some Partridge Family songs or something like that. You know what I mean? But once I started playing in rock and roll bands, they took pretty much every opportunity to shut down the rock and roll thing. For instance, if my grades were bad, I had to quit my band, that kind of thing, in high school. But once I got a job at the Holiday Inn bars at 16, I was playing acoustic guitar at the Holiday Inn bars for tips. They kind of saw that this is what I wanted to do. And they just thought it was like I think every parent of a musician that makes it probably thinks the same thing. Oh, they'll get sick of it and they'll, end up doing something else. But I never got sick of it, and I kept going and going and going. And then I think toward when the success hit, I think when we were finally on Letterman, I think that's when they came around, So, at that
this
point,
is not going away.
Yeah, this isn't going away. I think that this is, going to propel him into something, even more devilish.
Yeah, that is usually the conversation I run into. There's a lot of, parents want you to make sure you've got a secure job and income and all that. So there's a lot of pushback on that rock star thing. But I was talking to Miles Nielsen a week or two back, and his dad's Rick Nielsen, Cheap Trick, and I was like, so what was that dynamic like? When if your dad is a rock star, he can't very well tell you, well, being a rock star is not a viable path. You can't do this. So,
yeah.
It's
Miles, right?
Yeah, Miles. Yep.
Ask him if he remembers. We played Summerfest with Cheap Trick, and this was in the early days, probably 97, 96, 97, before the success of the Freshmen. And Cheap Trick was playing, and we got a knock on the bus door, and it was Rick Nielsen, and I about died. And I think it was Miles with him, because Miles was a fan, unless he has another son too, whoever he was with was a huge fan. And Rick said, "Hey, would you guys mind just saying hi to my son?" I was like, "Holy shit, dude, we would do anything for
That's
you."
amazing.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. That was one of those great moments where rock star moments where you get to meet people that you grew up listening to, where it's just an absolute thrill.
Yeah. Have you had any other of those that stuck out?
Oh yeah, but I mean, the biggest one for me was Pete Townsend. You know, I did a play. I do a little acting, and I did a play in La Jolla, and he's on the board of directors for this. And you know, I don't know if you know Tommy the Musical. You know, he worked with La Jolla Playhouse, and they developed that with Des McAnuff, who was this great director who did Jersey Boys and a bunch of other, you know, musicals. And so he came to see the performance. I was in a play called the Complete Works of Billy the Kid. And he went and saw the play. He came to the La Jolla Playhouse and saw it, and it was a musical. And then that night at his concert, he had like a benefit concert for the Playhouse. He said, "I saw the play today or whatever, and Brian Vander Ark or the Verve Pipe was awesome." And to hear that come out of his mouth, I was like, "Holy shit! Are you kidding me?"
That's
and then
amazing.
I got to talk to him at the after party afterwards for quite some time, which was one of the most frustrating things ever, because he is deaf. It's like at a party, especially, like he couldn't hear hardly anything I was saying. And it was like, really, and I felt bad for him. I was like, I'm just going to leave him alone now.
Yeah. So I'm going to take us a quick veer, because you said three words that are very important to me, and that is Billy the Kid. I am a huge Billy the Kid nerd. So was this play actually about Billy the Kid?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great play by Michael Anjante, who wrote The English Patient. It's super dark. You know, there are lines in it that Billy goes through these monologues that are really dark, like when he's talking about his days in the desert and he feels like he's been effed by Christ. You know, it's hard for me to even say "fucked by Christ" because it's like so dark.
Yeah.
And we did this play in front of a lot of old people too, and I was like, oh man, I would just sweat. I'd be like, because I was like, I couldn't invite my parents to go see this play; they would have walked out. You know,
Sure.
But it was so poetic and beautiful, and the songs were great. I if you ever have a chance to read it or see it, I highly recommend it's just an amazing play. Sean Hattasey was I think he's in the show Animal Kingdom now. He was the lead in it. He was Billy the Kid. I played his best friend, Charlie Baudry. It's a great play. It's a great play.
That would be amazing, because I know the actor you're talking about, Sean, and he's perfect for that role.
Yeah, it's spectacular. And the funny thing is that he did all of the gun work, all the gun tricks, the twirls and the whole thing. And he just worked on that for weeks and weeks. Every day you saw him twirling the guns and everything. I mean, he's such a committed actor and a great actor. It was a pleasure to work with him.
Yeah. He was intense on that show, Animal Kingdom. I mean, he, frighteningly so, just did an amazing job. I'll have to check that out. Because like I said, I love Billy the Kid, Lincoln County War. I've got books galore right there on the shelf. And I am not a musician, but at one point when I was dabbling with a friend of mine who is a musician, actually started writing a song about Billy the Kid. This was back in the day when I think it was the governor of New Mexico was, posthumously pardoning him for all his crimes. And I had this idea in my head that, Billy the Kid, from beyond the grave was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I committed all these crimes and you're going to pardon me for murder because people made some movies about me? Like, no, I was terrible. Yeah. Stop it. Like, That's funny. I mean, I would think that a guy like that, his legacy was his legacy. Leave it alone. Exactly. Yeah.
Funny.
So we were talking about Miles. He was actually just here not long ago playing out at the Acorn, which is what led us to this conversation, because you guys are coming out here. So this will be out, a little bit later. We're usually working about 6 weeks out. So this will be just a few weeks before that, because was it June? You and the full band are coming to the Acorn? Yeah,
I think it's June. Oh boy, I'm terrible at this. Might be June 14th, around that time.
Yeah. It's it's during the Acorn Music Festival, which is Yeah, June 15th, it looks like. And that's so exciting. I love what that venue is doing. And this is the second time they've done this music festival, and they're just doing such an amazing job. I've had my tickets for that weekend from the moment they went on sale and just kept it wide open because I'm not going to miss a single performance, including you guys. I didn't even know who was playing when they released the tickets. I was just like, well, whoever's going to be there, I know it's going to be good. So I
See,
was
that's
excited.
a great festival. That's
Yeah.
that's the key. When people don't care who the band is and they buy tickets in advance, then you know you've got a successful festival.
Indeed. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Now, have you guys played at the Acorn before, or at least you solo, or is this the first one?
I don't think so.
Okay, because
I don't think so.
You do come somewhat regularly to the Livery though in Benton Harbor, right?
Love the Livery. Yeah,
Yeah.
I go there once a year. I usually like to go there right in the middle of winter. And that's always a great fun time. I change it up every time. I'll bring different musicians in each time and just try to put on an uncommon show.
Yeah.
And I love that place. Love the Livery.
Yeah, no, they do a great job. It's another venue that's doing a really fantastic job of, they've obviously got a quality thing going with their beer selection and the food, and then they just put so much effort into bringing really great music, supporting local and regional artists, but also bringing in bigger name acts like yourself. And I think it goes to show. I don't know how familiar you are with this area, but it's such a weird sort of in-between area where, about halfway between Chicago and Detroit, or Chicago and Indianapolis, or, Toledo and all that. We're kind of this center stopping point with, this old industrial place that fell apart when all that fell apart. And now we're kind of reviving ourselves. And it's this cool little stop off point. It's small enough where you can have these intimate shows, but we can still get folks like yourself in and playing. I mean, what's your experience been when you've come to this area?
I grew up in Middleville, Michigan, which is like Wayland area, Hastings, between Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. So I'm very familiar with that area. I used to work for a music distributor, and I used to do the Walmarts and Kmarts. This is late 80s, early 90s. And so I drove through that area so much, the Benton Harbor, I did the Benton Harbor Walgreens and stuff. And it's just like, it was really bad then in the late 80s. And I was actually, and for the longest time, I hadn't revisited, especially when the Verve Pipe became successful, until I started playing the Livery. And I'm like, oh my God, the Livery in Benton Harbor? Really? There's a place in Benton Harbor? And the first time I went there, I was like, holy shit, awesome. Good for you guys. Keep it going. And that was, I want to say the first time I played there might have been even 10 years ago, close to that. So it's terrific. I mean, people in that area only know that they know about Benton Harbor, but St. Joe is right there, which is a much more successful place, more affluent. And I think we played a place called Czars. I don't even know if that's
Czars.
still.
That was my stomping grounds in my 20s.
Yeah,
no, it's gone, unfortunately, but I had some good times at Czars. That's for sure.
Yeah, that was the basement place, right? You go downstairs, and it was super smoky back then, and no ventilation. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. But then you think back to those days, and you're like, this was definitely a fire hazard. This was not safe at all.
That place. That comes to mind as a fire hazard. The worst fire hazard that I think about in the 90s was Rick's in East Lansing. I don't know if you've ever been there, but on campus, there was a place that had this super steep stairs you had to go down. So you had to climb these super steep stairs to get out. And I think that was the only exit. And it was packed every night. They had music every night. It was packed. I was like, oh my God, what a fire hazard. They would never let that place exist now.
Yeah. It is crazy. You've reached a certain age when you're, that's the thing on your mind. I went and saw, speaking of Roger Klein, Roger Klein is my favorite musician of all time. I've been following him since I was 14 years old. And my buddy Dylan and I, we went to Chicago to see him a couple of years back. And I think the venue's still there, so I'm not going to name its name, but it was the first time he had played this venue. And we get there and we're both like looking around and we're like, this place is not like like it looked like a tinderbox and there was one exit. And again, it was like that whole steep stairway kind of a thing. So we sat there both very nervously. He's a vet. He's got some injuries, so he has to sit. And we found the one table where we're like within sightline of the back exit door. We watched a few songs and then we were like, you know what? we're good. Let's go home. All right, see ya. So
Oh, that's funny. That you're right. As you get older, you pay attention to that because you start thinking about mortality. you know, and it's like I'm always conscious of where the exits are at all times.
Yep. So, you said kids album. How did you find your way to writing music for kids? What drew you to that, or what was your goal with all that?
I mean, you know, the band was in a pretty bad place, and we after the 9/11 album, and you know, there were 3 or 4 years there where we didn't even go out and play. And I had a daughter, and then when my second daughter came, it was like suddenly I was doubling the things I was buying when I was going to kids events. Like I buy one daughter one T-shirt, then I got to buy both daughters T-shirts, you know. And I realized that that's what, you know, people that have 5 kids, if they go to a show, they're going to buy one CD for one kid. They're going to buy CDs for all their kids. And I thought, that's a pretty good idea to put out a kids record. And it quadrupled our merchandise sales. It was great. I mean, Sirius XM picked up our song Serial and a song called Wake Up, and they played the shit out of that song, and they became hits on that radio station. And so next thing you know, I'm in Central Park, New York, you know, on a stage in Central Park, New York, playing a kids show to 10,000 screaming kids, pouring cereal out of my guitar onto my face. You know what I mean? It's like, what have I become? But again, music is music, man. I mean, we weren't the Wiggles, you know. We wrote really funny songs and with shenanigans about shenanigans. And we were growing up, it's a lot of 4-part harmonies and big rock guitar solos. And then the greatest thing about making the kids albums was if the Verve Pipe puts an oboe on an alternative rock song, it's going to be pretentious. But you can put an oboe or anything that you want to on a fucking kids record, because honestly, the kid who plays an oboe is going to go, oh my God, there's an oboe solo in this song, you know, and suddenly the kid playing oboe is a cool kid. So what we tried to do was we tried to make Sgt. Pepper's, you know, Lonely Hearts Club Band for kids. We just said, that's a kid's record to me. I mean, it's all over the map. It's all great. It's all catchy. They use every instrument possible. Let's just do that. And so that's what we did. And it was so freeing musically to do that, to not have to have the grungy guitars all the time, you know, to have a mix where the vocals out there and you can hear it, and you can hear some personality in the vocals, and you can write funny lyrics and stuff. It was amazing. Now, I don't think I'd ever go back to that, because we did so many kids shows, and then we would do adult shows at night. It was exhausting, dude, because a kid show is more exhausting than an adult show, because in an adult show, you can have dynamics, you can step back, you can let the music settle a little bit. At a kid show, you got to be boom, 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 because if you're not and the kids get bored, then the parents get mad and they won't come back again. You know? So we just quit doing it. We're just like, okay, enough.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's funny you say that, because I have a poster right over there of of Lisa Loeb, who, you know, she's done that same thing where she's really made that a thing for her. I saw her. She played at Notre Dame. I think it was last year or the year before. You know, a kid show at like 11 in the morning or something like that. And I don't have kids, and I was married at the time, so my wife and I show up to the show, and you know, there's all these parents with their kids running around, and there's just the two of us there, and I'm like, I just came to see Lisa, and it was a fun time because she did the kids thing, and then of course she had to play the songs all the parents knew, and but she was up there, and you could tell she was working that crowd, and she never stopped, you know. Here was the issue with us, and this happened when we played Lollapalooza on the kids stage. Perry Farrell had the kids stage. We played Lollapalooza, we played Austin City Limits, but as the kids band. And the mistake we made was that we can't play the Freshmen, a song about suicide and abortion at a kids show. Yeah. And so, you know, we played Austin City Limits, and, you know, the host had to come out because nobody was letting the kids up front. And he's like, hey guys, you might not know this. This is the kids stage.
the Verve Pipe is playing kids music today. They're not going to play the Freshmen. And just a rain of booze for us, and then people dispersed and the kids came up and we had a blast. But that was the toughest thing, was just being adamant about not playing the Freshmen. I just felt really strongly about it. I just felt like I want this to be a fun show. I don't want to sing about abortion.
Yeah. That's a little different than Lisa Loeb playing Stay at a kid's show.
Exactly. Exactly.
But it's still, I think there's a service there, because I think it's something that's born out of those of us who came up in the 80s and 90s. And it's instilling an appreciation of music. Where previous kids music wasn't really about that. It was more so about holding kids' attention and whatnot, where this, I think, is like, we're making music fans with this kids music nowadays. You've seen it. You're doing it. Lisa Loeb's doing it. Natalie Merchant did it. I mean, there's a bunch of artists that are doing that kind of thing, and it's pretty amazing. So I think it's a service. Yeah.
And why not? If you can stretch yourself as an artist, and there have been a lot of residual effects because of it. We've turned on so many. Those kids now are 18 years old, 19 years old, and they're still fans of the band. And it's like, then they get discovered the Freshmen.
Yeah.
And when they're freshmen in high school, and they're like, oh my God, I remember seeing these guys when I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
So it's helpful.
I mean, everyone loves music. My earliest memories as a kid were hefting my mom and dad's records up onto a turntable and, playing whatever I could find. So, I
feel like it's our lowest common denominator as a species, human beings. Everybody loves music in some capacity, some genre.
Yeah.
From that kid in Dubai to the CEO in Manhattan. That's the one thing we pretty much all have in common outside of our physical, being.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I want to be cognizant of your time here. So as we wind down, what's next for you? As far as solo stuff goes, what's next for the band? What's on the horizon for you guys?
We've got another new record. I think this is our 12th album. We just keep churning them out. And so we're out on the road now playing the hits, of course, but also playing a couple of new songs just to try them out, that kind of thing. So that's a lot of fun. That's where the focus is right now. I'm always excited about the new album, but I'm super excited about this one. It's no different. Because playing them live, the songs have been going over amazingly well. So that's it. Just continuing to create and be artistic, try to be artistic every day, no matter if it's just doodling something or whatever. But this is a really aggressive schedule. In fact, we're going on the 2 Creed cruises with Creed and Three Doors Down and our old friends Tonic and Vertical Horizon. So that's going to be exciting too. That's coming up in a couple weeks. It's awesome. It's a good time.
Yeah, that is a great thing you're seeing now. And, as those of my generation get a little older, getting to see some of those bands maybe do like the cruise thing. Those things are fun. Or even getting them to come to town. We have in South Bend, Indiana, the Four Winds Field, and they're bringing a lot of the musicians of my era there, to play shows. And it's great because I don't have to drive to Chicago or Detroit. I can just go 15 minutes down the road and see a pretty nice show from a band that I used to listen to all the time, So.
Well, that's great right now is a really good time for music venues and to do festivals because of COVID. When COVID hit, we had 50 some shows cancel. So many bands were sitting on their thumb for 2 years. Now everybody's out. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to play. There's immense competition just to find a stage to play on. And so the more venues that pop up, the more festivals that pop up, like the Acorn Festival, the better for music lovers. It's a great time to be a live music lover for sure.
Definitely. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing you guys out at the Acorn, and one of these days when you're coming to town to do for the livery or if you come back to the Acorn or something like that, we'll have to get you in here in the studio too. We can do a little in-person thing. And I live in Niles. I don't know if you know Niles, Michigan at all.
I've been through Niles. In fact, I wasn't. Do you have a Meyer in Niles?
There's a Walmart in Niles. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I visited. That's what I visited back in the day when I was stocking shelves full of Vanilla Ice and Paula Abdul cassettes.
Yeah, it's really and I'm a little biased. I'm actually the chair of Niles Main Street, so I do a lot of work with the downtown and bringing things into it. But it really has revived as a town, and it won't be long that we might have a place that you can even play here in downtown Niles. So we'll definitely keep in touch on that. So
I love it. Well, keep us in mind when you get that place opened.
For sure.
Just be aware that of where the exits are.
That's always. Always. All right, Brian, again, it was awesome talking to you. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're traveling, and it's really cool to get to chat with you and give our listeners a chance to hear what you have to say. So
my pleasure. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to seeing you at the Acorn. All right, you take care. Safe travels.
Thanks, brother.
You have been listening to Anywhere the Needle Drops, a product of Red Chuck Productions. Be sure to keep tabs on everything going on with this show and everything else Red Chuck over at redchuckproductions.com or by following us at Red Chuck Productions on social media. Special thanks to Hero Jr. for our theme music. You can check them out, listen to their songs, and see where they're going to be over at herojrmusic.com. That's herojrmusic.com. Also, special thanks to Paul Clemson, our sound engineer and producer. And while you're at it, make sure you visit the websites and Bandcamps and shows of all of our guests. If you want local music, if you want independent music, or any kind of art, you've got to support them. So give musicians and artists your money. We will see you at the next episode. Until then, here's to life.
Well, 'cause I, would I